What if I told you that every war, every border conflict, and every economic rivalry could be traced back to one thing: the map? In Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall, we discover how mountains, rivers, oceans, and natural barriers still control global politics more than armies or governments ever could. Today we dive deep into the geography of power, and I promise you this: after this video you'll never look at a world map the same way again. Let's begin with a truth so obvious most people forget it. Geography rules the world. Tim Marshall opens his book with a brutal reminder. The world is not flat, it's not borderless, and it's not a global village. Geography creates boundaries, it creates opportunities, and it creates limitations. We live in an era of satellites, instant communication, and globalization. And yet geography still determines security, access to resources, and the ability to project power. Technology changes the tools of power, but it does not erase mountains, rivers, deserts, and oceans. Why does Russia fear invasion from the West? Why is China obsessed with controlling the South China Sea? Why does the United States dominate global trade? The answer lies not only in politics or military power, it lies in geography. Since the dawn of civilization, geography shaped empires. The Egyptians were protected by the Sahara Desert. The British became a sea power because of their island location, and landlocked nations? They always struggled. In today's world, geography explains why Afghanistan has never been fully conquered. It explains why Africa has struggled with development, and it explains why Europe has so many fragmented states. The landscape carved them. Marshall's central argument is powerful. Leaders don't always get to choose their strategies freely. Geography puts invisible chains on every decision. The physical world, the shape of the land, shapes the path of history. Geography is the backdrop to human history. It is the stage on which we act, and its boundaries set the limits of our ambition. In other words, your country's geography can be its greatest blessing, or its greatest curse. Look at Japan, an island nation protected from invasions, but dependent on trade for resources. Or Switzerland, surrounded by mountains, neutral in wars, fiercely independent. Geography explains both peace and conflict. Modern conflicts, Ukraine, Taiwan, Syria, are not just about ideology or economics. They are about strategic positions on the map, natural barriers, trade routes, access to water or warm water ports. Marshall argues that world leaders, whether they admit it or not, are all prisoners of geography. They act within boundaries set long before they were born. This doesn't mean leaders have no agency, but it means they are constrained. A president, a king, a dictator, all must respect the map. It's the ultimate silent force in global affairs. We like to think history is driven by great ideas or personalities, but sometimes it's driven by the fact that there's a mountain range here and a river there. Geography has no ideology, but it shapes every ideology. Understanding this is essential. If you want to understand why nations go to war, why alliances form, why trade routes matter, you have to look at the map first, because no matter how advanced the world becomes, the Earth hasn't changed, and the old rules of geography still decide the fate of nations. And nowhere is this more visible than in Russia, a country obsessed with its geography, haunted by its history, and desperate to secure its borders. Let's explore why Russia is forever trapped by its landscape. Let's talk about Russia, a giant on the map but in many ways a prisoner of its geography. Tim Marshall argues that no country is more shaped by fear of invasion than Russia. And once you look at the map, you'll understand why. Russia stretches across 11 time zones. Yet its heart, Moscow, lies exposed on flat, open land with little natural protection. To the west, there are no mountains, no large rivers, no deserts to defend it from invasion. Just vast, flat plains. This geography has shaped Russia's history for centuries. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia across these western plains. In 1941, Hitler did the same. Both caused catastrophic losses, but left behind a permanent Russian obsession: never again. This is why Russia's strategy has always been about creating buffer zones. It doesn't expand just for power. It expands for survival. Ukraine is the latest chapter in this story. When Ukraine started leaning toward NATO and the West, Russia saw a nightmare scenario: losing its buffer. This wasn't just politics, it was existential fear rooted in centuries of history. Russia must control the flatlands to its west or be controlled by whoever does. Russia's northern ports are frozen much of the year. Its warm water port in Crimea is vital for naval power, making the 2014 annexation of Crimea not just a political act but a geographic necessity from Russia's point of view. Russia has always feared encirclement, And when you look at the map, surrounded by NATO to the west, China to the south, and the Arctic ice to the north, you can see why. Russia's military buildup, energy diplomacy, and information warfare all serve one goal: securing the homeland from perceived threats. Geography has taught Russia to be paranoid. Russian literature, politics, and society reflect this fear of invasion. There's a national memory of suffering, a sense that only strength keeps Russia alive. Russia's geography is both blessing and curse. It's rich in natural resources, oil, gas, minerals, but it faces enormous challenges in transporting and selling these resources due to climate, terrain, and long distances. So, is Russia aggressive or simply terrified? Tim Marshall suggests it might be both, and the map explains why. For Russia, true security means controlling the countries around it. But that creates permanent tension with its neighbors, especially in the age of NATO expansion. Look at Belarus, Georgia, and Ukraine. Former Soviet territories now caught between Russia's security needs and the West's influence. Geography makes them battlegrounds. This mindset is deeply rooted in Russian leadership, from the Tsars to Stalin to Putin. They see the world not as a global community, but as a dangerous chessboard shaped by rivers, borders, and buffer zones. Understanding Russia's geography is not about justifying its actions, but about understanding its fears. And until those fears change, its strategy will not. Russia isn't aggressive by accident, it's aggressive by geography, and every policy, every invasion, every alliance flows from that simple reality. But Russia isn't alone in being shaped by the map. Next, we'll look at China, another superpower trapped by its geography, haunted by its borders, and determined to control its future. Now let's turn to China, another giant of the world map, but with a completely different set of geographic challenges than Russia. Tim Marshall argues that China's history, fears, and ambitions all come back to one reality: isolation by geography. China is a land of extremes. To the west there are towering mountains and the Tibetan Plateau. To the north you'll find the cold, empty steppes of Mongolia. To the southwest, thick jungles and harsh terrain. And to the east, the vast Pacific Ocean. For centuries, these geographic barriers allowed China to develop a unique civilization, largely protected from foreign influence. But isolation also came with vulnerabilities, a lack of expansion routes, dependence on internal resources, and challenges in projecting power outward. China's view of the world has long been shaped by its geography. The concept of the Middle Kingdom, a civilization surrounded by lesser tribes and territories, really reflects this historic isolation and self-reliance. But China's geography has also left it feeling vulnerable. While its interior was protected, its coastline, especially near the South China Sea, is wide open. That vulnerability shapes almost everything China does today. Most of China's population, industry, and trade routes are concentrated on the eastern coast. But that coast is exposed, facing U.S. allies like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet. Control of the South China Sea is about far more than resources or fishing rights. For China, it's about survival, security, and honestly, preventing foreign powers from blocking its maritime trade. This is why China has invested billions building artificial islands, militarizing them with runways, missile systems, and radar installations. It's a geographic arms race. China's strategy isn't expansion for glory, it's expansion for breathing space. The South China Sea is China's front yard, and it will do anything to control it. Even within China, geography shapes politics. The east is rich, urban, and industrial. The west, regions like Tibet and Xinjiang, are isolated, mountainous, and culturally distinct. Holding the Western territories together requires massive infrastructure projects, surveillance, and sometimes repression. Marshall highlights China's Belt and Road Project as another response to geography. It's a plan to build trade routes, pipelines, and railways across Asia, giving China land-based options to avoid relying only on vulnerable sea lanes. Geography explains China's obsession with controlling its neighborhood and its determination to create new paths to the outside world. But China's geography creates more than just external fears. It creates internal instability. Holding such a vast, diverse nation together is no easy task, and geography makes that task harder. Flood-prone rivers like the Yangtze and Yellow River have shaped Chinese civilization for millennia, bringing both life and destruction. Managing these natural forces remains a challenge to this day. China is energy-hungry but resource-poor relative to its needs. it imports most of its oil and gas, much of it via sea routes that could be blocked in a conflict. Geography fuels China's urgency to secure energy independence. The Chinese Navy's rapid expansion, the creation of port facilities in the Indian Ocean, and investments in technology like hypersonic missiles, all are responses to geographic vulnerabilities. China isn't expanding out of arrogance, it's expanding because the map demands it. Survival in the Chinese view means controlling its borders, its seas, and its trade routes. Look at the map of China. You're not just looking at a country, you're looking at a fortress under construction, shaped by thousands of years of geographic isolation and modern strategic fear. But China and Russia are only part of the story. Next, we explore the United States, a superpower blessed not by paranoia or fear, but by the greatest geographic advantage in human history. Let's see why. And now we arrive at the United States, a nation whose power, influence, and global dominance owe as much to its geography as to its politics or economy. Tim Marshall argues that if Russia is haunted by geography and China is constrained by it, then America has been blessed by it. No country on Earth has a more favorable geographical position than the United States, and that is the secret to its rise as a superpower. To the east, the vast Atlantic Ocean. To the west, the Pacific Ocean. To the north, a peaceful border with Canada. To the south, a relatively manageable border with Mexico. This isolation has historically protected the U.S. from foreign invasion. Most powerful nations in history had to spend huge resources defending their borders. The United States? Its borders defend themselves. Within its borders, the U.S. has some of the richest farmland in the world, the American Midwest. Its river system, especially the Mississippi and its tributaries, provides unmatched natural highways for trade and transport. Tim Marshall notes that the Mississippi River Basin connects over 31 states, allowing goods to travel cheaply across huge distances. This made the U.S. economy incredibly efficient long before highways or railroads were built. The U.S. is also rich in resources: oil, gas, coal, minerals. Unlike many other countries, America doesn't rely heavily on foreign imports for its basic needs. All of this geography allowed the U.S. to grow rich, stable, and powerful behind its natural barriers, while other nations struggled with invasions, instability, or resource shortages. Geography didn't guarantee America's success, but it stacked the deck in its favor more than any other country. The U.S. Navy, the largest in the world, patrols not just its own shores but every major sea route on the planet. This control over the world's oceans gives America economic and military influence far beyond its borders. From World War II to the Cold War and beyond, America's geographic isolation allowed it to enter wars late, suffer fewer casualties, and emerge stronger than its rivals. Geography wasn't just luck, it was strategic security. Compare this to Europe, with dozens of small nations divided by mountains and rivers. The US, by contrast, is a continental empire with few internal barriers, making political and economic unity easier. But geography doesn't just offer advantages, it shapes America's foreign policy too. Surrounded by oceans, the US tends to intervene abroad only when its own dominance is threatened. Tim Marshall explains America's strategy: prevent any rival power from controlling Eurasia, because a united superpower there could one day challenge US dominance. Hence, America's involvement in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Geography also helped shape America's soft power, its ability to project culture, trade, and influence worldwide, protected from many of the conflicts that devastate other regions. Marshall makes it clear, America is not powerful because it is morally superior or uniquely brilliant. It is powerful because its geography gives it a head start the rest of the world cannot match. Without the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, without the Mississippi River, without its fertile plains, the United States might have been just another fragmented nation in a dangerous world, but the map gave America security, prosperity, and the freedom to project power globally. Geography gave America time and space to rise. The next time you look at a map of the world, remember this: geography doesn't just explain America's past, it explains its present power and its future strategy. But while America enjoys the gift of geography, other regions face enormous challenges. In the next video, we'll explore Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, regions trapped, divided, and shaped forever by their landscapes. Stay with me. So next time you read the news about wars, about invasions, about alliances, ask yourself this: is it really politics, or is it geography doing what it's always done? In the next episode, we'll explore Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Regions trapped by their own geography. Which part of today's video surprised you most? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to keep exploring how the world really works, subscribe now.